Hello, my name is Marie Toole, and I'm an AARP Colorado volunteer. AARP Colorado believes the best years begin at 50, and we are about to prove that with our program, the new 50 Plus. It's a mindset that says we are better than ever. We can see and feel the trends. People 50 and older are more active, both physically and mentally, than ever before. They aren't slowing down. In fact, they are preparing themselves to do more of the things they love. So many older adults are exercising and eating right daily. They are taking the time to learn new things, and they know the importance of life balance, making sure that leisure and fun are significant parts of their healthy lifestyle. As part of that get up and go attitude, we are hosting webinars like Eating for More Energy with Culinary Nutritionist Michelle Fox, where we can discover ways to keep our numbers in check so that as we age, we can continue to do the little things that we love to do without limitations. Tonight, we'll be making crispy kale and garlic pizza that's gluten-free and an autumn salad. Please note that we are offering closed captioning option this evening. If you're interested in that option, click on the last red button at the bottom. If you are watching a recorded version, you may download the transcript under the Handouts tab, the fifth red button to the left that looks like paper. Also, if you're interested in a copy of tonight's recipe, it is located in the handout bar now. If you'd like to hear more about healthy living and nutrition, please check out our website, aarp.org/food/healthy eating. We thank you for connecting with us tonight. So in this lively spirit, you're going to enjoy our Eating for More Energy with Michelle Fox, where we hope you learn something new and exciting. We want you to enjoy yourself, relax, and most importantly, have some fun. And here is Michelle Fox.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you so much, Marie, for that beautiful and warm welcome. As she said, I am Michelle Fox, Culinary Nutritionist, and I am so excited to be here with you this evening. I would love to know who's in the room. If you wouldn't mind telling me in the chat box, I would love your name, I would love your city. And for those of you who have been with me a couple times, and even my first timers, my newbies, tell me something that you're grateful for. There's so much going on in the world right now, and cooking, this pizza is going to bring the fun, but I think that gratitude just adds an extra layer of oxytocin and that feel good. So let's see it. Let me see your name. Let me see your city that you're coming in from, and let me know at least one thing you're grateful for. And while we're doing that, just so you know, my chat box is slightly to the right of the screen. So when I'm looking away, I'm looking at the chat box. I want to make sure you know I'm still 100% with you, but my attention might look a little bit over here. So wonderful. I see Kathy and Kevin from Minnesota. Let me move my screen over so I can see everybody. Bonnie from Bowie, Maryland. Love it. Gwen's in New Jersey. Welcome, Gwen. I know this is getting a little late for you, so I'll talk relatively quickly, but slowly enough that we can get all the ingredients going. Joan in Littleton, Colorado. So glad you're here. Glad you made it, my buddy. Carolyn from Arlington, Virginia. Well, we've got a lot of East Coast tonight. I love it. Welcome. Faye in Florida. And Faye is grateful for pizza. You get jazz hands for that, Faye. I love it. Yay for pizza. We're going to be cooking it up tonight. Emily in Colorado, welcome, welcome. Sandy in Colorado, Liz and Clark, yay, hopefully cooking together in Brighton, Colorado. Pat in Westminster, Denise from California. Sandy says she's grateful for health and happiness. Gotta love that. That is speaking from my heart to yours. Thank you for sharing that. Health and happiness. Let's see. Oh, Marie's back. Hello. She says, I love your webinars. Let's see. In Westminster. Welcome back. Rosalind in Silver Spring, Maryland. One of my best friends lives there. So welcome, everybody. Tonight, we are going to make one of my favorite new dishes, actually. This is actually only the second time I'm making it, so send me a little bit of luck. I can tell you, I am grateful to be here with you. There are so many things and places that we could all be doing and getting into, but cooking is just so grounding, and it's just so much more fun when we can do it in community. So tonight's recipe, the crispy kale and garlic pizza and an autumn salad. I picked this recipe because it is loaded with antioxidants, it's loaded with fiber, it's loaded with iron, it's loaded with vitamin C, it's loaded with so many good nutrients that are going to help keep our body more energetic. And I think you'll find tomorrow you'll have a nice cleansing. You saw in my title, Nutritionist, so yes, I talk about these things as well. But hopefully, most of all, it will be fun and it will be delicious. I really hope you love this. So, a few housekeeping things before we jump right in. If you are baking and prepping with me tonight, set your ovens at 450 degrees now. We're going to preheat them. And if you have a pizza stone or even like a baking sheet, go ahead and put that in the oven while it's heating up. And then I'll tell you next steps in a moment. So 450 degrees. For those of you who are not cooking with us, and or if you're cooking and you want to follow along on the special recipe I created for you, if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a few of those red circles. The one towards the middle that has the papers in it, if you click that, you'll see a PDF version of my presentation, and you can print that so that you can make these recipes over and over and over. If you're on an iPad, I've been told those red buttons are going to be more to the left of your screen. Let's see, I feel like I'm missing out on another item. I'm looking over to see if there's any comments. No, it looks like we're good. Okay, well, if I think of the other item, I'll share it with you. And again, I want this to be interactive. So if you have questions as we go on, if you have even recommendations, because I know there's some of you in this community that know a lot more about cooking and baking than I do, please share with all of us. I am definitely open to learning as we cook and grow together. So let's make this pizza dough. The first ingredient I put on was warm water, 3/4 cup. So I already put mine in my nice little glass. And we're going to do this liquid mixture first because it includes the yeast. And the yeast is going to help the dough rise a little bit more. So we have it a little bit fluffier. When we're working with gluten-free flours, it can often be really dense. And with that said, I know the recipe, for those of you, again, who are cooking with me and you got your ingredients ahead of time, hopefully you got the gluten-free flour because it's a lot less inflammatory than the quote-unquote regular flour. Wheat products are not great for most of our bodies, I will say. Some people can digest it just fine, but I will tell you that the way wheat is grown in 2021, it's not the same wheat that was grown in 1921, let's say. And so that's why we see a lot of the diseases that crop up when we have so much wheat in our diet. So that's why this special pizza, I recommended the gluten-free flour. If you weren't able to buy it, don't worry. I'll look the other way, kind of, but hopefully you found the gluten-free flour. With that said, I use Bob's Red Mill. They don't endorse me, don't worry, but it's just really easy to get because I can find it at King Soopers, Sprouts, Whole Foods, and I like that they do a mix because when you're doing gluten-free baking, pretty much gluten-free anything, if you're going to use the flours, you want to do different mixtures or it will come out super dense. So back to this yeast and the water. So we've got the warm water in the bowl. I just got this pretty simple active dry yeast. You can get that from pretty much any store. I'm pouring it in the water. And then in the ingredients, I also said 1 tablespoon coconut sugar or 1 pitted date. If you're going to use the pitted date for this sweetener, then you're probably going to want to put this mixture in a blender so that you can blend that date down. I'm using coconut sugar because it has a lower glycemic index rating than the white stuff. So If you didn't quite find the coconut sugar, you can always use maple syrup. That's going to be a little bit less, what would we say, toxic to our blood sugar, or even honey. But with pizza dough, we do want to add something that's a little bit sweet, because it's nice to have that sweetness with the salty mixture, I find, when I eat my pizza. And I saw something moving on the right here, so let me just check to make sure I'm not leaving anybody behind. Let's see. So Joan's asking, can you use fast-acting yeast? Yes, you can. Thanks for asking. And I wonder if that's what this is. So yeah, fast-acting or active, they're both relatively the same. So awesome question. And yes, Faye is asking, gluten-free flour pre-blends have xanthan, which disagrees with me. Any DIY suggestions? Absolutely. Thanks so much for asking. So Faye, some great baking flours that I have found that you don't need the xanthan gum. You could do equal parts brown rice flour, which is actually a great binder, with maybe even some coconut flour. And the coconut flour actually has some great antioxidant properties in it. So even just 1-to-1 that way. You can also use white rice flour. That's going to be a little bit higher on the sugar and the glycemic index. So I don't always recommend the white rice, but it tastes really good. Almond flour, that's a big one we use in this house. So you could use even just, like sometimes I'll do almond flour wrapped in some chicken, or chicken wrapped in the almond flour, and then you have like chicken nuggets that are really yummy and, again, very low in the glycemic index. So hopefully that helps. I would also recommend just Googling gluten-free flours, and you'll see, like, nowadays there's hundreds of yummy options. 20 years ago, when I was diagnosed with celiac disease, there was hardly anything. In fact, when we go to a restaurant, they'd be like, gluten, what? Like, they just look at me like I'm crazy. But now, most restaurants know what's going on, and clearly this community does. So thanks for asking such amazing questions. Let's see, looks like we have one more. Marie says King Arthur Baking has some great gluten-free flour blends. Amen, I totally agree. They actually make my favorite brownies, chocolate brownies. But on that note, I just want to double check, because this is the Bob's Red Mill. I didn't know that it had the xanthan gum. Oh, it's the last ingredient. So you're exactly right, Faye. Thank you for hipping me to that. I will remember that moving forward. Okay, so we've poured in the yeast, and that's getting moist. I am using the coconut sugar to sweeten up my dough. And then we're just gonna mix it all together. And I promise I won't sing the whole time, but when I'm mixing, sometimes when I'm blending, the song just comes out. I can't stop it. I can't help myself. So mix it up together. There will be some lumps still in there, and that's perfectly fine, because it's going to end up in the mixer. But while we're mixing, I should also mention that we're going to use, I'm using a mixer, but you can also use a handheld mixer for the next step if you want to. And then eventually for the topping, the pesto topping, I'm going to use a food processor, but you're also welcome to pull out a blender instead if you don't have a food processor, or if you just prefer to use a blender, it all works. All right, so now that this wet mixture is mixed as much as possible, I'm just going to put it to the side. We want that to sit for a minimum of 5 minutes to let the science of that yeast do its thing. Yeah, that's my very official culinary nutrition direction. Let the yeast do its thing. All right, so let's look at the recipe. So we've got the warm water, the sweetener, and the active yeast sitting here. Next, we're going to do 2 cups flour, because I knew I'd be talking so much and I was a little bit afraid of the white powder going everywhere. I put my 2 cups gluten-free flour in the bowl already. And then I'm just going to add 1 teaspoon sea salt. Kind of eyeball that. I'm going to put it on the mixer. And I'm just going to slowly blend it, just a really quick blend. Oh yeah, and the dance. Feel free, if the mixer's dancing, feel free to let the body dance too. It's all good. All right, so very simple, mixing that together. Next, we are going to put in the egg, the oil, and the vinegar. And again, the vinegar does that science thing once it does mix with the yeast. I am using apple cider vinegar because it is an amazing, amazing nutrient, which helps lower our blood sugar, actually. So those of us who are dealing with maybe diabetes or some other sugar issues, this is just great to help balance our bloodstream. So we're gonna put in about 1 tablespoon. Teaspoon. This one actually you can't do too much. So we got 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And then we're gonna do 1 tablespoon of the olive oil. We're gonna use a lot of, not a lot of olive oil, but a lot of steps using olive oil tonight. 1 tablespoon. And then 1 large egg. And I noticed I did not get a separate bowl. I'm gonna just grab one of my glasses because I am a culinary nutritionist, which means I'm not a professional chef. So cracking an egg still makes me a little bit nervous sometimes. And that's the beautiful thing about culinary nutrition, is that there's no such thing as perfection. The best perfection, or the only perfection about it, is getting that nutrition in our body. So the egg is the protein that we're adding. And let's see if I can, ooh, look at that. I did it. No extra eggshells. And I'm just gonna pour that in to our mixture, our dry mixture. And I believe I have talked enough that 5 minutes have passed. And so I'm gonna put in our yeast mixture, which I'm gonna give it a good stir real quick to make sure nothing has settled to the bottom of the bowl. And I'm just gonna pour it right in. And while this is mixing, if you could pull out a sheet of parchment paper or foil, because once it mixes, we're gonna be molding our pizza dough, our pizza crust, on the parchment paper. So here we go. I don't know how loud it's gonna get, but mind the noise, and feel free to do a little shoulder shake. Here we go. And you'll notice it's gonna start getting clumpy, which is good, that's what we want. And if you need to grab a spatula to push down the sides, that might be the case. Okay, so if yours ended up like mine, you'll see it's like a big clump. Not to worry, and don't touch it yet, because we are going to, this is actually one of my favorite parts, just the sensual part of like feeling the food, working with the food, putting in the love in the food that we know we're gonna be putting in our body. So just put maybe like half a tablespoon, full tablespoon if that's what comes out, of olive oil in your hand, and just rub it. Give yourself a nice little palm massage. And then we're gonna, with our oiled hands, we're gonna grab that dough and we're gonna put it on the parchment paper, because we're going to shape our dough on the parchment paper, and then we will flip it onto the pizza board. All right. When I said board, you might have a pizza board. I have a pizza stone. You might have a baking sheet. Whatever you're using, it should be in the oven right now. No worries if you came in late and you missed that step. Just put it in now, or it's really okay. I like putting the pizza stone in a little bit earlier, just because it adds a little bit more crispness to the bottom of the dough. but I really want you to listen to your intuition and cook this pizza the way you like it. Some people like a soft dough. Some people like a crispy dough. There's no right or wrong. It's just deliciousness. All right, so we've got that. Let's see if we have any more at the bottom. Oh yeah, we've got plenty more at the bottom of the bowl. So be sure to clean out the bowl. And now, again, with our oiled hands, my favorite part, it's almost like playing with Play-Doh. Now we're just gonna shape this dough into the shape you want. Some people like the round pizzas. Some people like square pizzas. This is your pizza, so you get to make it any shape you want. The only thing I would recommend you do is to make it as thin as possible because we use the yeast, so it will rise. We're gonna put it in the oven for about 10 minutes after we shape it. So in that 10 minutes, science is going to do its thing and it's going to rise. With that said, I know I said the title of this is crispy kale and garlic pizza. It is kind of like a flatbread flavor or texture when it comes out. So I hope you love flatbread too, because it's gonna be delicious. So I'm just gonna do like a little kind of curve on the edge because the sauce, the pesto sauce that we're about to make is very saucy. So I'm just gonna use this so the sauce hopefully stays on the pizza. And voila. So take your time, keep shaping it the way you want to. If you need to put more oil on your hands, go for that. I'm actually gonna rinse my fingers real quick. All right, and then, because we use the parchment paper, maybe you use the foil. Maybe you have a super clean kitchen counter, and that works too. I'm gonna move it to the side. And now I'm gonna go grab my hot pizza stone out of the oven. Whew. And here comes the smoke. Hopefully. Oh yeah, it's hot, so be careful. And of course, we all have our hand covers, right? All right, here we go. So, again, be careful because it is hot. So we're gonna go relatively quickly and just flip it. Bam, I did it, no mess. Love when that happens. But of course, if there was a mess, we would just clean it up and probably still eat it anyways. All right, and then just slowly peel the parchment paper off. So this is step one. And babe, my hot husband, aka producer, I'm gonna ask, would you mind taking off the fire alarms? I'm just afraid, or the smoke alarm. I'm just afraid the next time I open up that oven, because this is getting really hot, we might have some unwanted noise because we have a really sensitive smoke alarm. Plus, it gives me a little bit of time to check in with you before I put this into the oven. Let's see if there's any comments. Okay, so no comments yet. Let me, oh, you know what? I'm gonna save my questions until we get to the topping part. So if you put it on, now let's put the stone back in the oven with our beautiful crust. And again, the thinner, the better, I find, because it will rise. Mine's gonna be probably a little bit fluffy, but I'm gonna eat it. All right, here we go. Okay, now we're gonna set our alarm for 10 minutes. So we want the dough to bake for about 10 minutes while we make our pesto topping. This is my favorite part, but I have a feeling I will probably say that at least 5 more times. But the reason why this is my favorite part is because it's green. Who can tell me, as we're putting all these pieces together, the benefits of kale? Just give me one even. You'll get bonus points for one benefit, even though there's about 1,000 benefits of eating kale. And I'm gonna wait. In fact, I'm gonna do a little dance until I hear or read something that somebody says that's good about kale and why we want kale in our bodies. Iron. Denise gets the prize for the first answer. Good job, Denise. Absolutely. It's a very powerful source of iron. And that, again, is going to help us keep our energy up. So we want that iron in. Allison says potassium. Amen. Emily says fiber. Marie says fiber. Barbara says fiber. Yes, and we want that fiber. I like to tell my students, I use the poof method. That's how it helps me remember. For every meal, to keep our blood sugar balanced, to keep our hormones in check, to keep our energy up, we want PUF, which is PFF. We want a protein, we want a fat, a healthy fat, and we want fiber. So this pizza gets it all because we're getting the healthy fat through the olive oil and the nuts that we'll be talking about in a moment. We're getting the fat from the olive oil, which we'll be using quite a bit. And we'll be getting the fiber from the greens. All right, and Marcia says vitamin A, vitamin C, and K. Yes. Bonnie says antioxidant. Amen. You guys are on it. I love this community. All right, so for the topping, it's going to be kind of a pesto flavor. If you have other veggies, of course, start pulling those out now. But for this recipe, we're going to use 2 cups kale, which I'll put in now. And I pre-washed my kale earlier. And as you can see, I have my glass jars. I store all of my veggies in the glass jar. Just a side hip tip. When you do go grocery shopping, hopefully you're doing your weekly meal planning. And when you bring your veggies home, you want to prep them hopefully when you're coming home from the grocery store so that for the rest of the week, you can just grab and go. So this week in particular, my husband stepped up and did the grocery shopping, which I'm so grateful for because I had a weekend away, but he came back with this gorgeous kale. So I'm using about a full head for the first part of this pesto. And I'm going to save maybe a handful for the actual topping. That's where we're going to get the crispy part of the kale pizza. So that's about 2 cups here. And then we are going to do 1/2 cup nuts. And feel free to experiment. My first pizza, I believe I used pistachio nuts, and it was great. Tonight, I'm going to use pecans, and I know it's going to be great. You can use almonds, which actually might be a little tough, so maybe take that back. You could try almonds if you have like a super high-speed blender, but try some of the softer nuts. So it'd be the pecans, it would be the walnuts, the pinyon nuts. You could even try this with pumpkin seeds. But put in about 1/2 cup, I'm just eyeballing it, of your nut and or seed of choice. Let's see, I saw a comment. Bonnie says, do vegetables stay a lot fresher in a glass jar? I never heard of that. Any vegetable? Awesome question. Yes, I could actually talk about that subject a good 2 hours. So I will just say high level, yes, we want all of our foods, if we're bringing them home from the grocery store in plastics, we want them out of those plastics because oftentimes when food is in plastic, it's leaching some of that chemical that plastics are made out of. And those chemicals come into our bodies as xenoestrogens, and they kind of mess with our brain chemicals. And so we don't want that. So yes to glass jars for eliminating the chemicals, but also yes to keeping them fresher because yes, they do last a lot longer. I put this kale in the glass Monday, and it's, as you can see, it's perfectly green and gorgeous. So awesome question. Thank you, Bonnie. All right, so we've got the kale, we've got the nuts, 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm just gonna eyeball it. That's about 1, that's about 2, it's about 3. And I'm using my food processor, but feel free to use a high-speed blender for this part to make the pesto. And now we're gonna use 4 garlic cloves. Fun trick with the garlic cloves, if it's fully peeled, you just take it and you turn your knife to the side and you just pound it at a peel. So I'm actually showing you all 2 ways tonight. We're gonna do live garlic, but also for those of us who are really super busy during the days and weeks, one of my secrets is the pre-made, or I should say the pre-minced garlic that you can find in the grocery stores. I think hubby got this from Costco for me. So I don't love that it's in plastic, but I do love that it's easy access. And because garlic is such a beautiful antioxidant and antiviral, it's kind of gonna overshadow anything that the plastic chemicals might do. At least that's how I justify it. So we're gonna do half and half tonight. I'm gonna do 2 live garlic cloves. You see how easy that skin just peeled off after we pounced it, another official term. And then I'm gonna do 2 scoops, 2 like heaping teaspoons of the already pre-minced garlic. Garlic is, oh, smells so good. Garlic is one of those superfoods, and I know that term gets thrown around a lot, but it truly is. It is antiviral, it's antiseptic, it's anti-inflammatory, and it's perfect for this season right now because the changing of the season, going from the hot summers to the cooler weather, a lot of our immune systems kind of start to break down a little bit, but I strongly recommend getting as much green, getting as much garlic and onion in your body. And that just kind of helps that transition as we go into the colder months. So this pizza is a guaranteed to help to up your immune system. So we've got the garlic. Let's see, 1 teaspoon sea salt. And if you like pepper, this is actually personal choice, but I happen to love pepper, so I'm gonna put a bit in there. And now I'm just gonna blend it up, and we might need to put more oil as we go, but use your intuition. So if you want kind of like a chunky pesto, great, we'll have it chunky. If you want more of a smooth pesto, you probably are gonna end up putting in more olive oil. Oh, one more thing, as I mentioned the olive oil, we want to use olive oil because it supports our brains. With that said, I will warn you, it's not great to use olive oil at higher temperatures. So the sauteing and the frying, we want to use coconut oil or avocado oil if we're using it at high heats. But if we're just baking and or using it as a salad topper, then that's perfect because that olive oil is definitely supporting our brains. All right, here we go. Turning on the food processor. Don't forget to do a little shoulder. Get that shoulder in there. Oh, that's looking good. So mine's a bit chunky right now, so I am just gonna add 2 tablespoons on the top and see if that kind of loosens it up a little bit. All right, and it's sticking to the side, so I'm just gonna grab my spatula and I'm gonna push all the ingredients down, and then we'll give it another whirl. Oh, it smells so good. Those of you who are cooking with me, are you smelling the aromas? Those of you who are observing, can you smell it through the television? My culinary nutrition teacher, Megan, she always says, I wish there was smell-o-vision, so you could just smell all this lusciousness through the screen. Let's see, and producer is saying, it looks like we have 1 minute left. 10 minutes is up. Oh, 10 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to do another round, and then I'm going to go grab the pizza dough. Here we go. And feel free to get the shoulders in there. I'm going to add a little bit more. All right, so I think I'm going to do a third round because I really do like mine more the liquid consistency versus the chunky. But again, go at the flavor and style that you like. And also, speaking of flavor, let's give it a little taste test to see if it might need a little bit more salt or a little bit more oil. Yeah, glad I remembered. So I am adding a little bit more salt and a little bit more oil to make it a little bit more liquid. I'm gonna push it down to the side. And now I'll go grab that dough. Here we go. Move the knife out of the way. Safety first. Oh, I love it. It actually smells like cookies. I wish I didn't love cookies so much. I try my best to make the sugar-free cookies when I do want the cookies, but back to this time of year, it's very grounding, I think, to have warm baked goods. And lucky for us, all the ingredients we use tonight are very low on the glycemic index and very high on the nutrition value. So we've got our crust, and it's looking crusty and doughy. Ooh, yeah, that's gonna be good. Nice and soft. Grab a little bit more of your yummy olive oil, and we're just gonna put that on as a first layer. And if you have like a smoother oner, use that. You can also just use the back of a spoon if you want to smooth it on. But just don't forget, this is hot, so take your time, go slow. There's no such thing as perfection in culinary nutrition. It's gonna be very delicious. All right, so let's see, I saw a few comments come in. So Bonnie says, I imagine you could use spinach instead of kale. Absolutely, yes, love that suggestion. That would be delicious and equally as healthy. And then Denise says, yep, and basil, of course. Yes, love the basil. For those of you all, actually, I'd love to see it in the chat. Who was brave enough to do a garden this year? I can tell you, gardens speak to my heart. I just couldn't get to it this summer. But next summer, you have my word. The garden is coming in. Let's see, anybody do a garden this summer? Although we have people all over the nation. So I know there's some of you who can actually grow. Your growing season is like all year long. I'm here in Colorado, so our growing season is relatively short. Let's see, Donna says, what is in your oil bottle? Thanks for asking, Donna. So this is my olive oil. And I don't know if you can see behind my shoulder that way. We've got my avocado oil, because again, for anything I'm sauteing or frying, we really don't fry in this house, but if we were to fry, we would use the avocado oil. And what I love about avocado oil is that not only is it brain supportive, but when you cook with it, it has zero to almost no flavor to it. So it kind of takes on whatever flavor you're cooking or sauteing. Let's see, Bonnie says, I